minutes from last month's February meeting. Does anyone have any edits that they saw need to be made?
I just have a minor one.
Yeah.
I think my name was spelled wrong just in the beginning, McMillan. Like throughout the document, it's fine.
Okay.
So it's just A-N.
Yep, in the present, I see that in the very beginning. Yep, okay. Any others? I didn't have any. Someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the February monthly meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? And when we do this, can we keep our hands raised just for a little bit? Because I guess Kate, last time, the hands went down too fast. She couldn't get accurate counts, and the video didn't quite show it. So if we could just hold them up for a second.
Do we need?
Oh, yes,
With
we need an
Stuart
alternate.
not here?
Talia, why don't you vote until Stuart shows up?
Okay.
If he shows up. Okay? Okay. All right. So all in favor of the minutes? So 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much. So that was everybody. Next item on the agenda is the work session for 50, I don't even know how you, is it Clough Street? Clough Street? Clough Drive?
Clough? I don't
Clough?
know, Clough. I've heard it both ways. Clough or Clough?
Little Harbor School.
Plow is usually.
Clough, okay. Little Harbor School.
Let's see, I'll share.
For the work session, did you want to, like?
Oh, yeah.
Would you,
Did we go down there for the work session?
No, that's for the HDC later tonight.
Okay. So you can just present from the podium, and I think Peter has the presentation
Yep,
up,
it's coming up now.
and then we'll just converse after that. And who's ever speaking, just please introduce yourself for the record, too.
Sure.
Thank you.
My name's Cornelius Murphy. I work with a small landscape architecture company out of York, Maine called Whole Systems Design Collective. We've been working with the PTA at Little Harbor School to design a new playground. I don't know if you guys can zoom into that a little bit.
I'm trying here.
So the playground in question is within a shoreline area. It's on a wetland buffer. There's a lot of overlapping ecological considerations there. There's been a new wetland delineation that we were just made aware of sort of during this process that we're trying to be sensitive to. And if you zoom into the first slide, I could just walk you through the existing conditions.
Oh, there you go.
I have to zoom that way. It's not going full screen on me.
If you hit like Control key L, it might go full screen.
Control L.
Yeah. Oh, you're in a web browser. Sorry.
Right.
All right. So this is, I think that's probably close enough. So school obviously is off to the lookers right here to the east. The playground area, if you guys can see that kind of bold red line that we've put around the perimeter of it, it's bordered to the north by Clue Drive, which is the entry into the school. To the south is the wetland and shoreline area. There's an existing fence that creates that sort of right angle that you're seeing to the south a little bit. And the boundary to the west is essentially that woodland, and to the east is the school building itself. There's a large existing asphalt play area that utility line goes through, and there's a basketball court, some existing four-square courts. There's a small play field off to the west, which is essentially like an informal soccer field. And then there is the playground equipment, which in this drawing is just represented by that light tan fill. It's, some swing sets, a couple of climbing structures.
Should be a
sandbox.
pointer up there if you want to use it. And one of the buttons does like a red
Hold top button for
zoom or
pointer.
something.
Woo! Yeah.
There you go.
Whoa.
Fancy.
Asphalt court. Sorry. How does this? Yeah, okay. So that's the only way to use it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Sorry, so Yeah, this is the asphalt court in here, playground equipment here. In the tan, there's a large climbing structure there, small little like covered outdoor pavilion there, swing sets in here and along the west side, and a gaga pit here, and then this is the sort of informal soccer open play field area. This diagram is showing what we're considering the new wetland delineation, which essentially comes into the playground space. Previously, this wetland delineation was outside of the edge of that fence. So that's something that we're taking into consideration. This line here is the 100-foot setback or buffer, and this line here is the 25-foot. And then this is the floodplain area in that sort of blue or aquamarine line in there. So that's just kind of the existing conditions. Most of you, I think, were on the site walk and walked with us to kind of move through things. We have a couple of diagrams that just show sort of the overall intent. If you want to flip to the next sheet of what we'd like to do in this space. So these are just some reference imagery. You know, we'd like to kind of incorporate, there's some existing stormwater runoff issues from that asphalt area as it comes through the different play spaces. We'd like to sort of more formally organize that, potentially integrate some areas to cross over and create a little bit of passive interaction for the kids, and incorporate some natural play elements like these steppers that we're seeing, maybe a willow tunnel, and kind of incorporate some additional native planting with play mounds. That's kind of demonstrated by that image down on the lower right-hand corner. So this is the current proposal that we walked through on site. If you remember, the asphalt play area has been reduced. It previously came kind of out to here. And what we've essentially done is, based on that new wetland delineation and the buffer setback, this line, again, runs here, we've basically peeled, you know, the whole playground back. So we've taken a chunk of that asphalt, which is, again, that line, and cut into the corner, that southwest corner, and moved all those play features up into what used to be the asphalt court area. On the east side of that, we're hoping to introduce some stormwater management features. So this would be the idea of having some sort of bioswale that captures all that stormwater runoff that's coming from the asphalt court area and run it through a central feature that then ties into the new wetland delineation, which is in that southwest corner. We've relocated a majority of the playground equipment. The only thing that stays, if you remember from the previous slide, is that small outdoor pavilion or the hut. The swing sets are located on either side of that. That hut now becomes the only piece of the furthest south piece of playground equipment, the thing that's the closest to the wetland and buffer, where previously all this equipment was actually much closer. So we're pushing it back. And then we've relocated the climbing structures kind of to the northwest corner here. That passive soccer field. The idea is, you know, right now it's kind of like all just sort of commingled, and there's foot traffic all over the place. What we'd like to do is just formalize it a little bit more, maybe do a little bit of light grading work and kind of pull it away from the buffer as much as we can, and have this be a little bit more formal, but that still remains in the same similar use pattern. And then as we get down to that wetland buffer, what we've done is just allowed for this whole southwest corner to essentially just grow back into existing vegetation, to just let that place sort of rewild. And we're proposing that we would involve some sort of maintenance regimen that included monitoring and removing invasives, and also having some sort of fencing or protection around that area that allowed that vegetation to come in. Along with that, we would do additional plantings, which we're illustrating with these canopy trees here. And we are introducing, there's that small little footbridge element, and a handful of sensory gardens off to the east, and then the area kind of in between this sort of rewilded wetland area and buffer would just all be lawn area. So this strip in between the play equipment and that, oops, sorry, I'm losing my connection here. This whole strip would just be like open, passive outdoor play, essentially lawn. And yeah, I think that's it. We do have a couple of just quick slides that show the equipment that we'd be introducing into this space. If you want to cycle through those quickly, and then we can come back to the plan. People have questions. Oh, actually, this is helpful. This is a cross section that's just showing. If you want to go back to the other slide really quick, you can see the cross section. We're basically looking from north to south, looking west through this cross section. You can see roughly what the elevations of the playground are and how we're proposing to capture some of the stormwater. So Clue Drive. Actually, if you zoom out a little bit, we're missing Clue
Yep,
Drive.
sorry.
Thank you. Clue Drive here. We have some mounds and landscaping that would help protect the new playground area from Clue Drive, the traffic along Clue Drive. This would be that reduced size asphalt area, small bioswale feature that's hopefully collecting some of that stormwater and redirecting it so it's not causing any erosion issues. That's the existing small hut that's out there now. This is the idea of introducing some of those mounds along the edge of the wetland buffer and the sort of rewilding area or area that's allowed to grow back in all the way off to the west out here. So that's just a quick cross section to show it in a different view. And then we have a couple of slides that show some of the equipment that would be introduced into the space. So this is an example of the play equipment that we've identified that would potentially be located in that top northwest corner, and then the swing sets down below, and a couple of these additional small climbing elements off here to the right and to the bottom left. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. We'll open it up to if you have questions for us and if commissioners have questions for you and ideas and all that. So whoever wants to take it away.
I'm just curious how accessibility factors into the design and considerations around that. I saw one of I see there's a swing, more of like a bucket style swing, but have you kind of worked that into the plan a bit when you're considering?
So there is a requirement, I'm sure you guys are aware of, then there's some new guidelines that have been passed as of January 1, 2024 around accessibility, and we've done our best to follow those guidelines or our interpretation of those guidelines. We've reached out to various people at the state and the city to ask for clarification in regards to those, and we have not received what I would consider like clear direction and or feedback. But if you go back to that the first slide, the proposed conditions slide, the third one. You zoom in just a little bit. Part of this cutout from the asphalt that we're proposing basically leaves a access path that touches every single piece of play equipment in the space and provides universal access to those pieces of equipment. Whether or not the actual pieces of equipment have universal accessible elements, we just kind of haven't really drilled down to that level of detail yet. We're still working on broad stroke conceptual layout and design.
Got it.
But we've incorporated those principles in terms of being able to provide clear access based on those guidelines to each one of those play elements that we're proposing in the space. So we're essentially doing the best that we can so far with the feedback and the interpretation that we're using based on the new guidelines.
Right. And I'm assuming like the bridge structure would be wide enough for everybody. I don't know a ton about
Yes.
playground design, so
Yep. 100%.
the-
And that pathway is wide enough. It's graded to be, flat and accessible enough. It meets all that criteria. Again, on a conceptual level, we don't have a detailed grading plan or anything like that, but that's the intent.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, Lynn.
It's sort of like a related question. When we did the site walk, and maybe this is part of that same guidelines, have you gotten no feedback about the material that you can put down at the base of the playground? Wood chips?
We still have outstanding questions.
Yeah.
The first person we followed up with was folks at the city. They were following up with folks at the state. I think it went as far as to follow up with some of the representatives at the state level that had passed the legislation, and we've yet to get clear feedback or direction from any one of those people. Some of the same people that we were asking for feedback had the same questions that we did. So we don't, I wish I had a better answer, but I don't. It's kind of a gray area right now since it's a new piece that was passed, and this is sort of one of the first projects that's probably going through that process. I mean, we'll follow up again, but
I wonder if that's something that we could offer here. Like, I guess, I don't know how other people feel, but I mean, I feel like wood chips would be more ecological than the whatever, the plasticky stuff that's probably recommended for safety and ADA. Like, and I mean, if we made that as like, this is a condition, this is a unique situation, a playground in the wetland buffer, whether that would lend a little bit of weight to going that direction versus.
But it has to be accessible, and wood chips are not an
Yeah.
accessible surface for the kids that need them.
Can you talk into the microphone? Sorry, so you're on, and just state your name.
I mean, I understand the environmental component of wood chips, but they're not an accessible surface. So part of the reason why we wanted to try and keep as much of a cutout of the asphalt as possible is so that people would be able to go to the structure, whether or not it goes from the pathway. There has to be a pathway from the pathway to entering and exiting the structure, and that may have to be that pour-in-place material in order to meet the requirements. But that doesn't necessarily, that's what we're waiting on finding out, is whether or not the entire playground has to be pour-in-place, because if the entire playground does, then it's really a huge economic impact to the bottom line of this project being able to move forward at this design and in the way that we're hoping to have it. So we're just trying to balance between making the kids who need the space accessible and the rest of the kids who don't necessarily need that accessibility, and trying to fill a lot of buckets at the same time.
Right. Yep.
Can you just state your name for the record?
I'm Ashley Blackington.
Thank you.
And can you other guys do that? I didn't get everybody's name, just trying to go for the.
Oh, this is Kate Hayden.
Would you guys, do you guys have any specific thoughts about the pour-in-place versus the wood chips? Like, would that be the yes or no on permitting this project?
I mean, my instinct is wood chips would be better, but I mean, I know the what is it called? Form play?
Pour-in-place.
Yeah. I mean, I know it has good drainage, and I mean, I'm not saying it's an awful ecological choice. It just seems less environmental for a wetland buffer to me. I'm curious what other people think, though.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we might not have a choice if
Right.
if the new rules and guidelines are, this is what it needs to be, then that's what it needs to be, so. But yeah, I guess I'd agree with you on the.
I think if you can find the balance.
Yeah.
Where making it accessible and using that material where you need, and then where it's an option to do wood chips or something, that would,
Yeah, because right now, if you looked at the playground that's currently there,
it's all wood chips.
it's all wood chips, but it's also considered accessible because there's one strip of pathway that gets onto the big structure. However,
Right.
they changed the regulations for accessibility from when that playground was installed. So the playground that's there right now is not accessible. And so we have to kind of carry on with all the amendments that have happened. And so we might not be able to get away with like just a strip there. And then that also, we've heard from the previous OT at the school and a couple of teachers talking about accessibility being a big concern for kids that not necessarily are coming in with, very apparent mobility issues, but just general needs, and that we are addressing that because the current playground does not meet the needs for the children in the school that currently need it, so.
Well, I mean, to be perfectly candid, I have a kindergartner at this school, so my goals would be to be as environmentally thoughtful as we can, being in the wetland buffer, but also making it accessible to all students.
Yeah.
And I would say I really like this design in that you're using, like, I love the idea of some sort of willow tunnel or like using natural elements for kids to play in and explore and learn about, and it's not all metal and hardscape and those kinds of things. So I love that idea of adding those elements to the playground.
Yeah, when we came up with the design, we surveyed students, teachers, and parents and tried to blend all of the things that we were looking for in it. And so the bigger pieces, the big metal structures, those are more in line with what a lot of the kids ask for. And then the more natural elements, that was parents, and then the teachers, really visibility was their big piece, because there is 2 teachers out there for, I don't know, 45 to 60 kids, depending on the grade that's out there. So designing this in a way that it keeps it opens it up, but there's things to do, and also makes it safe, or allows it to be as safe as possible with 40 kids on a playground.
The one thing the school department did come back with feedback from this was they were concerned about some of the trees on the actual playground space next to the asphalt. So we're still gathering feedback and trying to resolve that with them to figure out. So there might not be quite as many trees on that border as
In the playground space,
On the
but they'll be
playground.
like around the edges.
they'll be relocated probably.
Yeah,
Some
so
of
I
them.
think just when you do come through with an application, just making sure that the ones on the plan are the
Yeah.
ones that are actually
Gonna be- yeah.
gonna be planted.
Yeah.
I have a question about, are the sensory gardens existing, or is that,
They're not.
okay. Have you, like, what goes into those? I mean, different vegetation, but like, what makes it a sensory garden?
The basic idea is that you're using plants and/or elements that purposely engage senses. So they're plants that are, vibrant in color. They're plants that have some sort of texture and touch. They're
Yeah.
aromatic, so they're sort of offering up a lot of tactile experiences
Yeah.
on purpose, not just sort of like as a byproduct or like as a secondary measure. It's purposely planted in a way to stimulate those different types of senses.
Gotcha. And likely also a benefit would be pollinators, I'm assuming.
There's a crossover,
Which would be
100%,
great, yeah.
of, some of the more showy plants also tend to be really good pollinators
Yeah.
for obvious reasons.
Yep.
And there's crossover, multifunctional, uses of those plants,
Yeah.
100%. And that, it would mostly be herbaceous, maybe there's some shrubs in there as well, but that's kind of the intent.
Thank you.
Yeah, Barbara.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, as a general statement, to commend you all for putting together something that is not just a playground replacement, but is something that is kind of engaging with the natural environment and doing better than what we've done with this city property in the past. And so I know that's not the easiest way forward. But I have some questions about how you plan to implement that, and also just the design in general. So peeling back the asphalt, I think is great, but it's not very much. It's kind of sort of just at the buffer edge. I wondered if you considered taking more asphalt out of that and sort of shifting the location of the playground even further.
The part of the issue with not being able to take up as much is emergency access. There's a basketball court that is there, and a lot of the kids had identified things like Foursquare and kickball and stuff like that we can't move to another space on the property. So it ends up being, is it like 15 feet on the west side or something like that?
That's a 20-foot access.
This one's 20, yeah, but then that gets pulled up. How far does that
Oh,
get?
that distance there?
Yeah, because that corner, is that corner the current?
This line is the existing.
Who's ever speaking, just make sure you're in the microphone so it gets recorded, sorry.
This
I know it's
line
tough.
is the existing asphalt, so at its widest point, it's probably something like 25 or 30 feet plus that we're pulling back from the corner.
Yeah, I guess I'd just encourage you, as you're thinking about it, like, this is your chance to get rid of blacktop in that area, so I don't know if it can be sort of squeezed even further. I mean, as a parent, I would love to see that
Yeah.
happen.
No, go ahead.
It's all you.
I think this is what we struggled with in the first iteration of the plan. The school does a lot on the playground for different functions, different activities. The basketball court is also memorialized. There was a child that was murdered in the fifth grade a couple of years ago, so that's part of the memorial for his honor. So there's a lot of things that are happening there that, as much as we were trying to pull back as much blacktop as we could, there were certain things that the school needed it for. That's the one place in the outdoor environment that that they have that for all these other things. So it gets tricky when you need it to be the playground, but you also need it to be like a function space for the school. So that's kind of where we came, like we took off like a quarter of it to try to meet all of the stakeholders' thoughts about what was needed for all of the outdoor space.
The other thing I'll mention about the asphalt really quickly too is, you know, the edge of it is obviously this little sort of gray line. But again, we're trying to sort of leverage that existing asphalt from a cost perspective as that accessibility piece, instead of having to like dig it up and replace it, which would have even substantial impact. So the idea is kind of that, yes, that is the edge that we're going to, but if you kind of include the fact that we're pulling back some of these bioswale or stormwater cutouts, you could actually argue that we're going, you know, quite a bit further, 10 or 15 feet beyond. And we're just really trying to get some multi-use out of that existing asphalt for the accessibility piece.
I had one more question.
Go ahead.
So just having to do with phasing, I mean, I know from my own personal experience doing a playground like this that you can't do it all at once usually. And a lot of these things are natural features that help with drainage and plantings that would likely be expensive. And, you know, you have to balance that with play equipment and stuff. So I'm just wondering if you have a sense of what's the first step and what would actually be like an enabling project for this to be able to have it drain properly, but also get some of the play elements you want. Just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to phase it because of the magnitude of the project and the funds that we have to raise in order to make it come to life. I believe our initial thought is to have the larger pieces of playground equipment installed because currently we're in the new plan.
Yes.
So in the plan, where are we here?
The top one that gives you.
Sorry, guys. There we go. So this piece here is the biggest piece of equipment that we would install in the new playground, and currently all of the equipment that the kids use is in this area, which would be the least expensive equipment that we'd put in. So the idea for us would be to, right now there's a Gaga pit here and this like caterpillar thing. And so we can pull those two things out. They're really small pieces of equipment and install the larger pieces of equipment so that we can sort of start out with a bang when it comes to installing those big pieces. And then that gives us the opportunity to phase out the smaller pieces of, or phase in the smaller pieces of equipment and the planting as we go. So working from the road down as we sort of chunk it along the project.
Thanks.
I think, just to bounce off that, I think another thing to think about when you're doing the phasing is, you know, as you're taking stuff up, making sure that ground cover is going down and certain plantings are going down to help limit erosion and promote infiltration in those areas, like as you kind of do them.
Yeah.
So nothing like kind of gets away from you and all of a sudden now you have this big erosion or drainage issue.
Yeah.
But kind of phase those plantings in appropriately to kind of manage that as you go.
Yeah, because when we met with the school department and the principal and maintenance, and it was a whole thing, and they that was the comment by someone was like, you're going to pull out all this equipment and then we have mud.
Yeah.
And what happens? And
Exactly.
so that's the other part is like we can't just pull everything out and then throw some grass seed down, because if we can phase it so that we can have the most disturbed ground in the summer when there aren't as many students there to give plants and grass a chance to establish, then we're going to be better off in the fall when 340 kids hit the playground
Yeah.
again. So yeah, that's the goal.
Okay. Go ahead, Barbara.
I think this is great. The amount of work that you guys have put into this and the direction you're going is really commendable. I had a couple of questions or comments to clarify when we were at the site. there was the fence and the Phragmites on one side, and then on the other side, you were saying that you're going to let it grow in more. Is that area 7 or 9? Is that
Is
9.
9? Okay. So my question, and it seems like maybe you've already thought of this since the site visit, is that are you going to like incorporate some plantings in that area and do some invasive species management in that area too to try?
Yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
In that, in the
Okay.
area down along, in that area 9, it's to, sorry, I gotta get my pointer. In this area, is to do that invasive species management, and as we phase stuff in, that create an opportunity to do some plantings
Yeah.
later on, like after the construction piece is done.
Okay. And I think city staff had suggested to us at one point that maybe some taller trees along that area would shade out the Phragmites on some level. So that might be something to consider, or to check in with whoever does your planting plan.
Yeah, because the maintenance and the school they were not so jazzed about having as many trees around the playground, and shade is really one of the things that we're aiming for, because it's across the board. Everyone said, please put a tree somewhere. So if we don't have the opportunity to put as many in the playground space, then to have some down along that edge too, which helps kind of create more of that barrier, but also gives an opportunity to shade the playground because of where the sun comes around.
That's great. And so my other thing is too, at some point, someone will need to do some sort of maintenance plan for this, or we'll need to see that when you come in for the actual application. And that, to me, is going to be really key to this, because you're going to be working with sort of a disconnect of whoever's doing the maintenance at the school or whatever's happening behind the scenes. I think it's going to be challenging and very interesting to see, how you come up with that, but that would definitely be something we'd want to see
Okay.
Later on. So I think it's great. Thank you.
Any other feedback from commissioners?
I guess just building on Barbara's comment there about the maintenance plan. I mean, it'd be nice if there's a way to kind of build into that just a little bit of a forward-looking kind of adaptive management piece, just knowing, right, that this area is going to get a little bit wetter over time, and just, I don't know, if there's any kind of sort of strategies you could build into there, kind of thresholds, or just being really clear about kind of, where the no-mow line is and how that, could potentially shift over time if it needs to. I don't know, just be nice to see that kind of acknowledged in the plan.
Yeah, I mean, definitely going into this project, given where the playground's located, the fact that we can't just sort of like pick it up and put it someplace where we don't have to deal with this, the idea and one of the reasons why we work with Cornelius is that we really want to make sure that the foundation for this space is done right, versus going in and pulling out the old equipment and putting in new equipment, because it's true. I mean, this area is going to be impacted in the next dozens of years by everything else going on in the world. And so we want to make sure that above all else, there's drainage that's considered, there is the invasive species management, all of those pieces, so that the next 30 years from now, when somebody comes along and is like, oh my God, this playground, they can pull out a piece of equipment, but they don't have to go through this process of, like, hopefully not having a wetland buffer move because there's going to be water on the swing set kind of thing. So yeah, we're definitely more long-term vision focused with an element of playground.
Yeah, which is great. And just having that kind of carryover from design to the maintenance steps too.
Yeah, and if you want to tell a story about it afterwards too, it would be great to, see how well things work and evaluate it and give, set the stage for other people to learn from your lessons. That,
Yeah, there's lessons.
Yeah,
They're learning things.
And actually, that brings me to the next question that I have for you guys is, as we're kind of going through this process, which is all new to us, I was wondering, in terms of permit, so this project, when this playground was, when the playground that's currently there was put in the 90s, they went through the whole application and permitting process through the state. At what point is it just considered like playground maintenance versus having to go through all the application processes again? I don't know if you guys can speak to that for the city or the state.
I would say it would have to do with where there's ground disturbance and new structures going in. If it's just, invasive species management or new plantings, things like that are fine. But if it's new structures or ground disturbance or adding pavement or removing pavement or putting in new play surfaces that would cause ground disturbance, then that would be the trigger.
Okay. So if we were to pull out the old structure and put a new one exactly where it was, that would still require the same permitting process because you're disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. I was hoping for a Hail Mary.
Yeah, but I mean that's why you're like laying out the whole vision, right? So it could all get approved at once potentially, right? And then it's good for.
Ideally, yeah. The
Period.
problem is the city approval is only good for a year. The state approval is good for 5 years, so you got to balance that. But if you're working on it, it's not going to, it's
Right, it's
still
a year
good.
to
Once you
start.
get the permit, then you can keep working on it
Okay.
over time.
Year to start.
A year to start. You can get one extension from that as well. Just keep track of the approval date, and then if you have to come in for an extension, you can. And then the second year, at the end of the second year, you'd have to re-present all over again to the Concom and the Planning Board.
Okay. But as long as some of the work starts within that first year, even if the work continues on for 3
That's
more
fine.
years? Okay.
Yep.
I was thinking too along those lines too, the regrading of that soccer area, right? That would count as a activity that requires a permit because it's, ground disturbance. So just making sure you're really clear about what you want to do there. If you want to raise the elevation or flatten it, which I would understand why you'd want to do that, right? Is I also have a kid who plays soccer out there. Yeah, just to make sure that that's in your plan, it gets permitted from the very beginning and then you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you guys have access to anyone who, like a wetland specialist or someone who, like, we were also looking at the state application, which I know, Peter, you said was a bear last time we saw you, and we now agree, and are looking for anyone who has any resources to kind of help us through that process as well. I don't know if there's anyone through the city or anyone that helps with that piece.
There's people at the city that understand it, and have done applications, but it's a serious time commitment. And you probably want your own wetland scientist working on your project. But we can talk about it if you want. We can at least give you advice here and there on which way to go.
Okay.
Any other questions for us?
I think so. Questions?
So at the walkthrough, the site walk, and just in the conversation we have now, my understanding, in addition to the plan that we're going to submit, we'd also like to have some sort of maintenance management narrative description for you guys to review. We also discussed having just a list of proposed plant species that would be incorporated into the design. Are there any other additional exhibits that you guys would want for review as part of the submittal in this package that we would bring to you?
I think if you're moving those trees, just indicating where those trees would be. And
Yep.
I was just looking at this resource, this Cornelius, I know you know about this one, but the tidal shoreline planting guide in New Hampshire that's got some trees that might be appropriate for a place like that that's a little bit wet and potentially a little bit salty.
Yep. Salt exposure for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say that whatever you're putting in for the pervious play structure, the sort of a cross-section of what's going underneath it, so they get the whole detail on how the imperviousness of it works.
Sure.
And I would elaborate sort of on what Lynn said and what I heard you say was just a list of plants. I think as and I know things can change and evolve, but as generally specific as you can get about this is where we intend to put them would be helpful for us to know too, not
Yes,
just like this
a
is,
plant
yeah.
schedule and legend to accompany the plan.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Number and size and, yeah,
Yes.
as specific
Yeah.
as you can get, it would
Yep.
be great.
We can get specific.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
We've got here basically at 6. We used to end at 6.
Oh, boy.
Because, HDCs.
Okay. All right, we got to get a move on. Okay. Next item on the agenda is 224 Broad Street, Unit 3, and we have a request for postponement. Would someone like to make a motion to postpone that to next month's meeting?
I will make a motion to postpone 224 Broad Street until the April meeting.
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business 110 Aldrich Road. Is there someone here to speak to that application?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ned Reynolds, 110 Aldrich Road, and I'm here today to present my application for a wetland conditional use permit for the construction of a two-car garage with accessory dwelling unit on the second floor. The staff memo has an error in the very first line. It's not a 768 square foot. It's the ADU limitation is 744, so it's it's 750. So my project is 744 square feet, 24 by 31. So anyway, as the staff memo and my letter to you state, constructing the 744 square foot building, 500 and my figures are 552 feet of it would be square feet of it would be within the 100-foot wetland buffer. You know, there's a big, as you saw on the site visit, a big wetland behind my house that 80% of that wetland is not on my land. It's on, falls within the lot, one of the lots on Boss Avenue. About 20% of that wetland, actual wetland, is, the very rear 10% of my yard. So then the 100-foot buffer line extends, substantially onto my lot. As you can see there, the green line, 100-foot buffer line, cuts through my existing house and through my existing yard and through my neighbor's house. So placing the garage there, most of it would be in the wetland buffer. However, it would be in the outer, quartile. The rear of the building would be 76 feet from the wetland. So in the staff, the staff memo states somewhere that the recommendation is that you will postpone this application with recommending that these other 9 items be addressed. I hope that you will not postpone the case because timing here is very important to me, but more important to me, important to you. I think all those 9 items are relatively minor, and I'm here prepared responding to them in terms of information to be brought, which is mentioned, and also things to be done, which I'm agreeable to. The only one that I'm not agreeable to is the suggestion that I place the building even farther forward on the lot. Again, as you know, we discussed this on site, but we discussed it on site. I guess it's not in anything in writing, but the building, I'm placing it there for several reasons, one of which is overall requirements for ADUs are that they be subservient to the house, that they're accessory to. And so the placement is only 12 feet farther back on the lot from the front of my house. The very front of my existing house that you can see there where it says 24 feet, that's my front porch. So the house itself is really right here. And so this distance is only 12 feet that I've got you know, that I want to make the footprint of the garage. So it's set back a little bit more from the street for visually, you know, it's not right next to it, like it looking like it's another house. So that I'm trying to satisfy that aesthetic concern, you know, to everyone, the neighbors and everyone. Secondly, and probably more importantly, is I really want to just maintain a single width driveway, curb cut in front of my house, and I want to maintain the nice mature hedge that it runs along the front of my lot by the sidewalk. You know, I don't want to take that down and make a triple width driveway. I don't want my whole lot to look like a parking lot. So as is shown on my site plan, I'm going to have a curved driveway area to access. Oh, there it is. You know, I kind of sketched it there. To get vehicles and, importantly for my intended use, trailers occasionally into the garage. And so I need enough space. I need enough room to be able to back off of the street through a single width driveway and into the garage with a trailer. So I can't be right up, you know, any further up to the street, or you won't be able to back a trailer. You'll be jackknifing the vehicle and the trailer. So I really feel like the placement that I intend, you know, is optimal. It balances, you know, it meets, like I said, the aesthetic, to have it be subservient to the house. It's only impacting the outer 25%, or, you know, 24 feet, the last 24 feet of the 100-foot buffer. One of the items mentioned in the staff memo is, and that we did discuss on site, is to include in my plan, in my construction, a drainage swale at the rear of the garage ADU, so the building will be draining to the rear. It's going to have sort of a salt box, as you can see in the site, in the elevation. It's going to have sort of a salt box shape, so it is going to drain to the rear. So I will want to, and spoke with my foundation guy when he was on site the other day about putting a drainage swale, you know, an 18-inch wide by 18-inch deep crushed stone swale, so that what comes off the roof will go down into the ground and you know, not pool. Although that's what happens now with all of it. Last week when we had all that rain, you guys asked when you were on site, do you have standing water? Yeah, I had some standing water that next morning. But, you know, my lot is very flat, as you saw. What falls on it really drains into, like soaks into it. It doesn't drain back to the wetland. It soaks in now, and so I'll want to continue to do that. So I agree. I want to put that drainage swale at the rear. Let's see. Things to be addressed. Yeah, so that's kind of number 2. I'm addressing that right here about this, the drip edge, the drainage swale at the rear. Certainly will comply with number 1 and install the permanent wetland boundary markers. Number 3, I addressed. I really, you know, really want to keep it where it is for those reasons that I described. Number 4, I do have I brought an item that we can queue up now. You know, I'm going to have, as my letter and the staff memo says, I'm going to, the existing driveway is asphalt, as you saw. And what I want to do is at the end of this construction project, I'll take up the asphalt and replace the entire asphalt driveway with a paver, you know, a permeable driveway made of pavers. Just so happens my across the street neighbor, Port City Hardscapes, is going to do that. He provided me with this diagram. I'm certainly going to do it properly in accordance with good engineering practices so that the driveway lasts. So it'll be like you see there. I haven't selected the exact pavers yet, but pavers with, I'll want the pattern to be substantial gap between them, and then progressively, more coarse, C-O-A-R-S-E, layers of stone to provide, a stable, durable base, but properly drain through the driveway. Right now, the entire driveway just drains off to each side, partly onto my lawn and partly onto, between my driveway and the house, and then up front, it's draining into the planted landscaped area in the front of my house. So I feel like the paver porous, permeable driveway will be a substantial improvement over the paved driveway. 144 square feet of the driveway is in the wetland buffer, so that will partly compensate for the 552 square feet of building that's going to go in the buffer. Maintenance plan, certainly I'm going to sweep and maintain, that new permeable driveway as it should be, so that it's both aesthetic and functional as it should be. I am happy to add some native wetland buffer plantings to the property, especially back at the rear part. I mentioned when you were on site, that I've been kind of haphazardly removing the invasives, but I'd very much like to plant some inland native wetland plantings in the buffer, make it more functional and more attractive. Number 7, I'm happy to remove the any debris. I'm not sure there's trash back there, but anything, including the wood decking pallet structure, remove that from the buffer. And again, if we can maybe switch to the site plan on number 8, I am showing the proposed driveway area on the site plan. That would be the one. Peter, if you could maybe go to the architect's drawing. He did draw that planned driveway that I mentioned earlier. So we're switching away.
This is in the packet, right?
This is not in the packet.
Okay,
This is the stuff that I brought.
Okay, got it.
A couple
The
of
driveway
ones I
one?
brought.
The permeable driveway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first, I'm sorry, the site plan is, of course, in the packet.
Yeah.
So maybe we'd take a quick look at the area. So
That one?
scroll up to the architect's.
Oh, this
I
architect.
think it's down. Yeah, I
architect's
think
down,
it's
yep.
farther down. Yeah, so over there.
This one?
Yep, and if you could shift over maybe a little bit. There we go. So, this, again, what I'm wanting to do is maintain the single width of the driveway. This area will be what's new driveway area in order to access the garage bays, but this is the area that rather than pavers, I want to use something even more permeable and more aesthetic, which is a plastic grid system, engineered plastic grid system. And if you could go to the new sheets, Peter, you know, I want to plant grass there, and basically this is where grass grows through these plastic pavers. Again, I don't want my front yard to look like a parking lot. I want it to look more green. So right here, grass fill. So you build, you know, a rigid surface for vehicles, but you can, you know, you can either fill it with sand or stone, but you can also just plant grass in it, and the grass will grow up. You know, I don't envision, at least as long as this property's mine, that this section of driveway will be used as much as the main driveway, the existing driveway. And we've got, you know, parking spaces in front of our house on the street, cutouts. So this is going to be a lesser used section of driveways. So for all those reasons, you know, I want it to be aesthetic. I'm going to make that portion of the driveway out with this product and plant grass. And again, this is out of the wetland buffer. So maybe not even, you know, jurisdictional, but just trying to share, you know, what I want to do. It's my ethic as well to try, as Peter could testify, to do things as sustainably as possible. You know, I mentioned on site, this is going to be a super insulated building. It's going to have solar on the roof. So it's part of my whole personal commitment to do things like this. Peter, there's one more sheet, like a second sheet for this product that I think shows some other stuff or other aspects of it. But again, this is the new driveway. It's actually outside the buffer, but it's what I want to do to, you know, make the entire project as
Is it the
environmentally positive and aesthetically positive. So there's another sheet that's called something like True Light.
Is it just this next page on that one we just had?
I thought they were two one-pagers, but
There's the the architectural, the permeable driveway engineering, and the aggregate for permeable driveway, and then the True Grid Pro Light.
True Grid Pro Light.
That's the one we were looking at, but maybe
That
it's
the
the
one we're
next
looking at?
page? Is it next, this page?
Yeah, I guess that. Okay, there's a better picture, you know, showing of how this stuff, this plastic grid material can be used for a driveway, you know, a drive or a parking area. That's my intent for that part in front of the garage. But again, that's out of the buffer, but that's what I want to do there. Yeah, so I think with that, I've my first shot at addressing all of those things, and happy to respond to your thoughts or questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from the commissioners? Go ahead, Barbara.
I was just going to comment on the suggestion of postponing for the next meeting. I was trying to go through all of these that you mentioned and figure out, you know, how we could do not postpone, and it's a little difficult. I do agree with number one, you know, that's a given, you know, you can just say that you're going to do that, and that's good. The drainage swale from coming off the roof is a little bit more complicated. We need to see where it's going to go, how big it's going to be, what is underneath. And so that's kind of hard to describe without, and giving a condition in that. Your number three, the police consider moving, I know you addressed it at the site visit too, and I mean, that one's, I totally understand that's not a condition necessarily. The permeable driveway with the pavers, you do provide that diagram, which is helpful, but I don't know if that's really what you're going to do. So, you know, that in providing that diagram, you are going to be committing, because that's all we see now, to doing that. And that there's a few things missing under that is like, you know, how deep each layer is. You know, are you going to put that under drain in there? Things like that. I mean, that does commit you to that, and giving us a little bit more information. And then sweeping and maintaining the driveway, you know, it would need to be written up, but that could be something that could be done in between. And then the native wetland buffer plantings, we really like to know what you're going to plant and where and how many. And the decking pallet structure, that's something you can say you're going to remove that and do that as a condition. That's not something we have to necessarily see anything more on. But, and this is just my opinion too. This might not be everybody's opinion. And then 8 and 9, that does kind of get into, you provided a little more information about the product. We still don't really have a cross-section of that. But, you know, is that definitely the product you're going to use and how that's going to be installed underneath and everything else? And I know you say that it's not in the buffer, but we do, a lot of times when somebody is going to be creating more impervious surface in the buffer, it's nice to kind of, you know, manage that even with other plantings and things outside of the buffer, because that helps from the runoff coming into the buffer area. So it's kind of really hard to do this without, you know, getting that more information and diagrams and a commitment to what you're saying here. And that, again, is my opinion. You know, I'm trying to work with you on this, but.
Okay, I appreciate it. Again, I don't have, you know, an engineer's drawing of those things yet, because I haven't gotten that far, you know, paying people to do things until I actually get permission. But I would maintain that these are relatively simple and small, you know. I mean, the drainage swale behind the building will be 24 feet as wide as the building, and it'll be 18 inches deep and 18 inches wide, and filled with aggregate. You know, the water will drain through. So I hope that you guys have a lot of business and a lot of bigger, complicated projects. I would hope that you could move the small ones through, you know, by homeowners with relative, you know, speed, as long as the things are minor and people are willing to commit. And I'm certainly committing to addressing each of these. You know, and that's the driveway plastic grid product that I'm going to use. I'm going to build it the way the product manufacturer recommends, and my professional driveway builder will build it. You know, I can certainly commit to a number of plantings in the, you know, new plantings in the wetland buffer. You know, 10 shrubs. Happy to say that. You know, I'm very willing. I want to make it sound project. I want to protect, you know, my property value and the ecological value of the resource and the neighborhood. But I do want to move ahead with this. Construction schedule, summer coming, you got to line people up. So you can't wait until May or June to try to go get an excavation contractor, because they'll tell you, oh, I can get you in October. So I'm asking fervently.
Other questions from commissioners? Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I agree with Barbara's points. In fact, several of those items were things that we mentioned when we were on site, that those would be helpful, minimum, to view those things there, like illustrations or documentation on the runoffs. This is a working session, correct?
No.
And so, no,
Nope, not a work session.
it
It's
was,
an application.
okay, I misunderstood because it's listed under work sessions.
It's new business, wetland conditional use permit.
Number 4.
And both, I guess. So I guess it's combined. You see at the top?
110 Aldrich?
Oh, I must be misreading it. I did misread it, I apologize.
Yeah, 110 Aldrich is just a wetland CUP.
Okay, that's my mistake. I thought that this was a working session, so I
No.
guess I just kept it in my mind
No.
from.
That's
from
okay.
the. So normally, it would be something like that, and we would be able to provide that feedback ahead of the
Right.
permit. I understand Yeah, so without that, it is difficult to be able to approve it without seeing that for me as well. And I'm sorry for the confusion on the other.
I guess I did try to be responsive and did reach out and get drawings and, representations, so that I felt like I was being responsive to that, and I guess I hope,
Yeah, and
I'm
sorry,
hoping that what I
wasn't
brought.
suggesting that you weren't. There's
Okay,
just
no.
those items that were mentioned specifically that are just still kind of a need. And so, no, I didn't intend to
No, no.
suggest that you weren't responsive.
I guess I have a question to try and find a way to move forward with what we're given, and I don't know procedurally. It almost seems like most of these things could be a slightly updated site plan that include showing where those various materials are and where the plantings might be, and, sort of a document that commits to that. Is it possible for him to commit to submitting that before construction begins and move forward, or is it postponement?
Yeah, so sometimes our stipulations will say, like, we have a certain number of things that we want on an updated site plan that would then be sent to Peter to make sure that it meets kind of what we're looking for, and then that updated site plan would be what the planning board would see. And so it just depends on the project and how many stipulations and how complex they are, whether or not that's the route we want to go. But it's definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I think the one thing that we try to do is give you the recommendation to the planning board. So we're not the last stop before it goes to the planning board. In this case, if you're comfortable and you want to have us review it, I think the key thing is not that you have the cut sheets or the description, but actual site plan, like you said, that has it on there. Because if it's not on the site plan, we can't hold him to it later that he had agreed to do it. So, that's, I think, the main reason Kate recommended postponement is because there's a lot of items, they aren't on the site plan. They wouldn't be before you to review. So if you feel comfortable, you could make a recommendation that we review them as long as he does X or Y and on the site plan, then we can put that together before that goes to the planning board, and it'll be documented that way. We'd have to work with them to do that. And
I'd be happy
that's
to do that. Commit to submitting an updated site plan that includes the location of the drip edge, the drainage swale behind the building, as well as location of 10 additional wetland buffer plantings. And
I think it's up to the commission how they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody, do we still have further questions for the applicant just regarding the project itself before we move into discussing how we want to approach it?
Can you just clarify, and I think you spoke to this on the site plan, so the space between the existing house and the proposed structure, all of that is gonna be pervious pavers? What's sort of delineated with a 4A300 in it, that full space will be where the pervious pavers are?
Correct.
And to the road, and then the
Right.
space where it kind of goes in, that's where you're gonna do this plastic.
That's probably the best diagram right there. The dark gray, that's the existing driveway. And my intention is to replace the entire existing driveway with permeable pavement, like pavers. With lots of, with space in between every brick, so that whole driveway, asphalt, now asphalt driveway becomes permeable.
And then that hand-drawn kind of arc
And-
is where you intend to use the plastic grid.
Right, it's hand-drawn on that, and it was
Right, yep,
drawn for
I
real
have
on
the
the architect.
other one.
But
Yep.
yeah, that's where the plastic grid pavers are gonna go and be grass, so that's even, more permeable.
And I think this did come up on the site walk as well, but just to be clear, you're just replacing the existing driveway with pervious pavers. There is some small, garden boxes right now on the house side, and there is, I think, a strip between the existing driveway and the edge of the new building. And I think we had said something that you said it would either be planted or just drainage rock or something.
Right, there's going to be about 2 feet, 18 inches to 2 feet. That'll all be subject to the precise design between the new building and the new driveway, and that will also be permeable, probably just coarse aggregate, stone to, again, drain through. It's permeable now because it's lawn, but, it takes all the drainage off the asphalt driveway. I'll be making the driveway permeable, but I'll still want to put permeable stuff there between the new driveway and the building.
Yep.
There won't be gutter, it'll be the roof slopes this way to the back, so I don't expect a lot of runoff, but still, we'll, make that in-between space,
Will there be
rough stone, aggregate.
plantings there or?
There's 2 doors, side doors entry into the
Yep.
unit.
Yep.
But yeah, that would probably look nice, sure,
Yeah,
to
okay.
be maybe plantings.
But it's more the walkway into the structure
Well,
is what you're
if
talking about.
they're in the middle of the building, in the middle of the structure, they'll basically be side-by-side doors, but the rest of the 31-foot length, so probably 20 feet of it, 10 on either side, will be unused, and so that could be planting too. Could look nice
okay.
with soil and planters, but either way, permeable. Not paved, no more asphalt.
Yeah, Lynn.
And just, this is our time to kind of hear all these details. I just have a couple more kind of detailed questions for you.
Sure.
So again, thinking about the driveway construction, will there be an under drain and where would it go?
Well, honestly, I think an under drain would be over engineering it. That's just my opinion based on, sensibilities. Right now it's an asphalt driveway and the water runs off and goes down, right, into the ground. But if you put a permeable, if you make, I know the cross section of the paver driveway, part of it shows, an under drain. Well, so now you're saying collect the water and send it
Right.
somewhere like, to the stormwater. Like, that seems like over engineering it. That seems like now you're going to move water that was draining into the lot and send it somewhere in volume. I think it would be more ecologically sound to build the the permeable paver driveway and let what has been happening the edges just happen into the ground.
Yep.
So,
No, I think
yeah,
I agree
that's
too,
my
but it's an
sense of that.
example of something to just make sure it's clear on
Yeah,
what you
that's-
submit to the planning board and to Peter.
Yeah, just to note on that particular diagram, the under drain was noted as either as required or as applicable. I'm sure that they have certain engineering standards of what goes under a driveway in terms of all of the water that's coming
When it
onto it.
needs it.
So I think that's part of like when you're selecting the actual paver, there will be an actual plan of what goes under it, and often there's some design considerations in terms of slope, water,
Soil and-
are you running a whole roof onto this driveway, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, my sense is it would just be better to have the water on the site, stay on the site. It does that now. But if you collect it in a membrane and channel it to a pipe, now you're sending it, I don't know where, right? I apply to connect it to the storm drain system, but now I'm sending this water into the city storm drain. So I don't think that's good. I think it would be better to just, so I guess I'm saying, I think it's more sound to not have a drain pipe, but just to have it drain through the pavers into the ground.
Yep. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just before you, I just have a procedural question, is how late can we be here
Oh,
tonight?
6. We have to be out at 6.
Okay. Because if we're 6 o'clock, I think we'll be all right. I just don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole and then
Right.
not be able to see the other applicants.
Yep. I think, I just have, I don't know, I have one more question. I don't, if everyone else might be good, and then we can make a motion to decide what to do.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
My last question is, the existing house, does any of that roof runoff go to the driveway currently?
No, there's one, there are gutters on that existing house, and there's a downspout on the front corner, the front right-hand, the northeast corner. And the downspout goes to the ground, and there's just a short section of, at the bottom of the drain pipe, and it goes into the ground there. There's a swale, there's stones. So, the whole front of the house is garden.
Okay.
And so that
So
stuff
not
doesn't
really.
make it to the driveway right
Okay.
now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, would someone like to make a motion, even if it's just for discussion purposes?
I feel like I do have, could I just maybe make one other comment?
Yeah.
Just about the design, I mean, just to sort of put it out there. I don't-
Yeah.
I
Is it
guess-
a question or a comment?
I guess this is more of a comment.
Because it could be in discussion too.
Oh, okay, sounds good.
Okay, so does someone want to make a motion?
So I will make a motion, at least to initiate conversation, that we recommend approval of the 110 Aldridge Road project with a myriad of stipulations that anybody wants to feel free to chime into, including a clearer delineation of the driveway and its various surfaces and the edging or drip edge or planting, a maintenance plan for the driveway,
Written.
which is for you, but also for future owners, so that they are clear with how to care for it. A planting plan with what and where and size of plants that will be planted along the 25-foot buffer. A markers to note where the wetland buffer boundary is. What else am I forgetting? Feel free to add.
Does it include the drainage swale coming off the roof?
With
Can we call it a drip edge?
Yeah,
Drip
drip
edge.
edge.
yes, with clear delineation of the drip edge that is proposed off the back edge of the house to collect water from the new building, I should say.
With specs.
Yes, with specs. And a clear detail and outline of where the plastic reinforced grass driveway layout will be and how that will be managed.
Remove the pallet from the,
Remove any
Pallet
trash or
structure.
debris from in the wetland buffer and the 25-foot vegetative buffer, including the wood decking and the pallet.
did
Anything
you
else?
have one more, Barbara? Or-
Well, I was just going to say, with the plantings, to say 10-plus shrubs or of native species, buffer plantings.
And just, I think to specify that those are in the buffer, not in the wetland itself.
Yeah.
Which may mean
Right.
putting them into some of the lawn area.
In the 25-foot buffer.
Exactly, yeah.
Any other stipulations people have come up with? Okay, do we have a second before we have discussion?
I'll second that.
Okay. What do people think?
I was just gonna say, plans like this come to us from time to time. I certainly can see why a homeowner may not have the exact paver picked out, may not have the exact engineering drawings, drawn up. They don't know if the project's even gonna be approved yet. They're not gonna go and spend probably thousands of dollars to kind of get to that point, to just hear a no. And it is difficult to kind of balance that, you know, kind of decision-making on our part without all of the information, if you will. I'm generally in favor of kind of doing it the way we're doing it here, where we include a bunch of stipulations. Oftentimes, if you choose a paver now, a driveway contractor may come in and he may have some engineering document that's a standard from that paver company and say, well, actually, you know, your square footage is this and there's no other water coming on. We would actually recommend this other product instead. I mean, there's other things in different situations. You might approach it differently with or without a under drain, all that stuff that is kind of figured out later on in the project. So I'm very, you know, conscious of that, especially with homeowners versus, you know, large projects that have already invested time and money into doing things like that. So something that we should certainly consider in our decision making. So.
Any other thoughts? Yeah, Barbara?
I was going to say, this one's hard because there's a lot, and a lot is still kind of not certain, but, and I'm hoping, this is a lot for staff to make decisions on or to review, and I'm hoping that the applicant will follow the instructions and provide more information than you think you should provide, and more details than you think you should provide, to make it easier for the staff to make a decision and not have to go back and forth. I think that's critical for the meeting with the planning board. So that's where I'm at. And I understand the homeowner end of things, and it's definitely something that's hard.
Yeah, it's, we also, you know, we require a lot from the applicants, and, you know, if you haven't gone through this process before, there's things you're not gonna think you need, which, and what we did talk to you about at the site walk, you did your best to provide to us, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate the additional driveway that you're adding, even though it's not in the 100-foot buffer. You are trying to make it more environmentally friendly, which I do appreciate. And, you know, the fact that you're kind of in charge of that river running through the side of your yard too, you know, that, you know, you didn't know you were going to be the guardian of it, you know, is, you know, thanks for keeping that moving, I guess.
Yep, I'm the steward, I guess. I'm the steward of the wetland.
And thank you for being receptive to, you know, adding some more native species in the back there within that 25-foot buffer. The 10 that you suggested, I think, will be good. And just, as I think you kind of already are, being mindful of what's back there. And just trying to keep stuff out of it, trying to maintain that 25-foot buffer as best you can. And, yeah, just kind of getting all these things that we talked about on a plan, so that we know what you're going to be doing, planning board knows what you're going to be doing, you know exactly what is required of you. And yeah, I mean, I personally would like to see it move forward so that you're not held back. But we'll see what the vote is on that. Does anyone
Thank you.
have anything else to say? Are we ready? Yeah, Lynn.
If you don't mind, just
Yeah.
a couple other kind of comments. Like, I totally, it's great to kind of hear your thinking process too. It seems like you really get the idea of, you know, keeping the runoff from the roof on the land and letting it soak in. Like, and I totally trust that you're going to find some really good design solutions for all of that. I guess just two other points, right? It's such a unique property because you are like, you know, part of your property is wetland. So just to be kind of honest, that if you really were to take 25 feet from the edge of that wetland and not, you know, that 25-foot buffer and not mow it, not cut it, not, you know, you're gonna lose a little bit of lawn there. And, you know, putting some shrubs there is great. It's a great reminder of kind of where that 25-foot edge is. And that would go a long way, I think, to kind of protecting that wetland back there. But I just want to acknowledge that there's a trade-off there for you as a homeowner. So, you know, thank you for being a steward of that wetland. And I'm sure there are a lot of little critters and amphibians and wildlife back there that are taking advantage of that wetland. And I guess along those same lines, I'll just also note that, you know, that drainage path that runs along the side of your property, you know, the way you steward that has a big impact on the wetland too, and you have the potential really to you know, when you're maintaining it, to kind of widen it and deepen it, and, I mean, that is in effect going to kind of drain that wetland. So just to be careful about how you maintain that, you know, and go a little light there, and,
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not
you know,
trying to make it bigger. It doesn't need to be made
Yeah.
any bigger. It just needs to do what it does now, you know. And,
yep. Yeah. But just to
yeah,
kind of
I
go
just
light
use
with
a-
it, right?
I just
Like-
use a rake. I don't use a shovel.
Yeah.
A rake to get the dead leaves out and, you know, the sticks and stuff.
Right, yeah.
That's all.
But, I mean, letting some of that water kind of pool up in the wetland is also great, too, right? I mean, I know there's a trade-off there in terms of property, protecting your physical buildings and all of that, but,
Yeah.
yeah. You're in a unique position for yourself and for everybody else who kind of benefits from
The wetland
that
itself is
wetland.
mostly on the lot, my neighbor's lot.
Yeah.
So I don't, you know, go onto their lot to do anything. And I, you know, I look forward to putting some nice plantings in that wild area at the back of my yard to make it look better, and even you know, and better functioning, and even plant some new trees back there, because as you could see, the big ones are getting pretty old, and one of them's, you know, about to fall down. So I want to do that. As I said, it's nice in the summertime when that fills in, you know, it all fills in with leaves, and makes it nice. So I value that being there.
Okay, so because
Yeah.
we're running out of time here, are we ready to vote? Yes?
I have one more comment that applies, sorry, it applies to this application and others, and we've kind of mentioned it before, and I just want to kind of remind us, and maybe city staff as well, but we've talked about kind of what is required in a submittal, and how we can be more clear on that. I think part of that might be on us, that especially during site walks, when the homeowners or property owners are there, you know, if we can be a little bit more clear about exactly what we want to see, we might get more of that information up front, and that certainly would help. And then, you know, I'm not sure what city staff can do to support us and whatnot, but, you know.
Try.
Yep. Just trying to remind ourselves that, you know, obviously we want to see a lot in these applications, and it's usually early in the process, and anything we can do to help support them would certainly be beneficial, so.
Thank you. All right, ready for a vote? All in favor? Against? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Peter, I guess we'll be in touch, so is, Barbara was against.
5, 6 to 1.
Yep. And so, so Brian, okay. So Barbara's recusing herself for the next application, so you are also
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So the next item of business is State Wetland Bureau application for 333 Borthwick Avenue.
My name is Brendan Walden. I'm with Gove Environmental Services. We submitted the application on behalf of the applicant. This is a after-the-fact dredge and fill application for the impacts associated with the oncology expansion. At the time, the engineers did not know that you were supposed to file a wetland application for impacts to man-made wetlands. There are permanent impacts of 200 square feet. That's the only reason that they had to file it. If it was just temporary impacts, then they could have done the disturbance. We did a site walk with Dave Price back in July, and this was the avenue that he recommended, just apply for the permit. At this time, the application has received an RFMI. The RFMI had one item, and it's just awaiting Fish and Game to review the FIS package related to the Blandings turtle that was observed in the vicinity of the project area on the NHB report. Overall, the expansion, as I'm sure you guys are probably aware, is complete at this time. There's no work ongoing, no other ground disturbing activity, so happy to answer any questions.
So this is an after the fact, right, Peter? An after the fact permit.
Yep.
So nothing has there's nothing that was changed from the original wetland conditional use permit to now?
Nope, it was
Okay.
built, it was built as proposed.
Okay. Questions from applicants? I think it's a little wild that a whole major state wetland bureau application was missed, but
That's
Here we
what
are.
when, because they brought up the dredging that needs to be done in that channel.
yeah.
And I said, oh, cool, did you guys do the application for the front? They said, what are you talking about?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
If there's no questions, someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we recommend approval for the dredge and fill minor impact application for 333 Borthwick Ave after the effect.
Do we have a second?
One second.
Second, okay. Discussion? No?
So we did do a site visit. So did they go through the city's permitting, but not the state's permitting?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, sorry, just
Yep.
getting caught up.
Yep.
They thought, yeah, at the time, they thought that that was all that you had to do, is go through the city, so.
Okay, then are we ready for a vote? Both alternates are voting. Barbara has recused herself. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is the State Wetland Bureau application for 53 Green Street.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Neil Hansen with Ty and Bonds. So this project, 53 Green Street, came through Conservation Commission and Planning Board back in 2021. We received a wetland conditional use permit at that time. The project was then appealed and held up for the last 2.5+ years. That process has now been resolved, and we are back in the process of heading towards construction of the project. As of right now, the project has not changed from what was originally approved. When we first came through, Conservation Commission was April of 2021, with Planning Board approval in July of 2021. The project, and here, wouldn't mind pulling up the plans.
Taking notes and doing my job here.
So I know, obviously, it's been quite a while, so I'm just going to do a quick overview of the project. The existing site is a one-story L-shaped building that abuts North Mill Pond. It's within the 100-foot tidal wetland buffer.
Do you want me to go to the site plans?
Yes, that would be great.
Just so you know, we do have to be out of here at 6.
I'm going to go
I'm
very
really
quick.
sorry.
No, it's fine.
And we have one more application after you, but I don't know, you just do what you can do.
That's the landscape plans before that.
That,
right?
yeah, that one's fine
Is
if you
is
just
that what you
roll
want?
it down. Yeah, that's totally fine. So the existing building, it's an L-shaped building, which is,
Right, there you go.
so the existing building is right up against Green Street. I think it's actually directly on the property line. Runs up this way and then makes the turn and runs parallel with the shoreline of the North Mill Pond. So the proposed building is a 45 residential units. There's parking within the first floor and ground floor levels of the building in this section, with a small retail space on the first floor. All the residential units are on the upper floors. The building was situated so that it was pulled back farther from the pond than the existing building, utilizing a lot of the existing footprint of that building. Between the existing building and the pond is all maintained lawn area right up to the edge of the bank. And then there's a steep bank into North Mill Pond. It's about 5 to 7 feet, somewhere in there. So the plan will take that area from maintained lawn. We've added a bunch of plantings. Conservation Commission in 2021, which I think some of you were here for that, had asked for some additional plantings. When we got that approval, those were added prior to going to Planning Board, so those are included in the approved plan set. The existing site doesn't have any stormwater treatment, all surface runoff, most of it heading towards North Mill Ponds. The proposed project, we're going to be collecting, detaining, and running through a filtration unit prior to discharge for all the impervious surfaces on site. This site also contains a piece of the planned North Mill Pond Trail, which is here. That is within the 50-foot buffer, which is a requirement of the zoning in this area. That path is a porous asphalt, which was a ask of the Conservation Commission back in 2021, and we have changed the material to that. We have our alteration of terrain approval already, and then we had submitted for wetland and shoreland through DES, which is why we are back before you today. I guess I'll just leave it there for now, since we're running short on time. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the applicant? I'll just start. So I went back to the April 2021 meeting, and we had 4 stipulations for our approval. So all of those were taken into account before you moved it to the planning board. So those should all be, like when you were talking about adding more vegetation, you're referring to number 4 was stating like we wanted more native understory plants in particular?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, 1, 3, and 4 on that original recommendation for approval from the planning board, moving the greenway path closer to the building and aligning it with the fire access, adding a porous pavement maintenance plan, and the more native understory, those were all included in the package that went to the planning board and was then
Okay.
approved.
Yeah.
Condition 2, we had agreed to, and then that was carried through as a condition of the wetland CUP with the planning board to sort of memorialize that
Okay.
in the final approval.
Okay. I know snow removal was touched base on in the original wetland CUP, and it said it was gonna be hauled off site. Was that after a certain, like, threshold was met?
No, this site doesn't have any extra space, so that it's gonna have to be hauled.
All of it, okay.
All of it, yeah.
Great.
The note may say that it's after a certain.
No, I kind of made it sound like it did, but I couldn't find where.
Oh, so note 22 on the site plan, all excess snow shall be hauled off site in accordance with all local and state laws. Proposed snow staging areas have been provided to show temporary snow storage areas. Don't know if there actually are any, so I think it's all gonna get hauled.
Okay. And then my last question was the dock floats. I think there was pictures that they used to be or currently are stored on site when they're removed in the winter.
They used to be, I don't know if they still are.
I
have not been out there in a couple of years.
They're not stored there anymore?
I don't think they are.
Okay.
I kind of look at that site, but.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the
haven't-
pictures in the original application showed
Yeah,
them
I know
like right there.
They used to be, I remember that coming up.
Yeah, okay.
Back when we were going through permitting. I don't know if they are anymore or not.
Okay.
I'm guessing when this is built, they would not want to store them there just for aesthetic purposes, let alone anything else, so.
Well, I don't think there's really a good spot for them either now.
There's
with
not
the-
anymore.
Okay. I know a lot of you weren't here for the original CUP
Yeah.
when we talked about
Right.
this a lot. It did pass 5-0, if that matters to anyone, in the April 2021 meeting for the city conditional use permit. Yeah, Barbara.
I just have two questions. One is on at page, it's C501, I think it is, which is the proposed mixed-use development. Let's see.
With the wetland buffer impact
Yeah.
plan.
And I get confused to what's relevant to, or what relates to what, but under vegetation, or there is talk about the fertilizer. And
Must be on
there's two
different
things. One, not using fertilizer in the buffer for the shoreland, but, and the other was that you guys had agreed to the NOFA standards, I think?
Yeah, that was the condition that was on the planning board approval.
So the plan does say vegetation, apply fertilizer at the rate of 600 pounds per acre.
I'm not sure what plan you're referring to.
C-501.
Oh, 501. I heard 105.
Sorry, I might have said that.
What section are you under, just so I can?
Vegetation, so
Oh,
the
gotcha.
center.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Does that just need to be like
Removed from there?
that section?
Yeah, and yeah, we can do that. Because it's on the condition of approval for the planning board, so we can update that when we submit the conform plan set, final plan set to the planning department prior to construction.
Okay. Yeah, so it would be under that A, seeded preparation, and it would be under 2, vegetated practice. You mentioned it again.
Yeah.
Applying it. So,
Yeah, we'll look to update that. We'll have to do that to address the condition of approval for the wetland CUP.
and then my last thing is, so was the building that's to the left of that, or west, was that completed? Was
That's the AC Hotel.
Yeah, was that done when you guys, in 2021 it
Yes.
was, right?
That opened in 2019, like December 2019, I think.
So you have a lot of plantings in that little access way? It doesn't seem like there's enough light. I mean, it's 2 tall buildings right
So
next to each other.
the ramp to the upper parking level is, I don't know exactly what the setback is, but that is open above it. So yeah, it'll be more open than it is now because that existing building butts right up to that
Okay.
property line.
Thank you.
But it is, yeah, you're right, it is a narrow strip. But yeah, I don't know what it looks like currently. Again, I haven't been back there, but when they first finished the hotel, it was pretty rough looking back there. So again, there's some pretty good incentive to have that cleaned up.
Great, thank you.
Questions? We ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval for the State Wetland Bureau application dredge and fill major impact for 53 Green Street with the one stipulation that you update the C501 page of the plans under vegetation regarding the fertilizer in those sections.
Second, okay. Discussion? Just a reminder, if you don't feel like you know enough or feel comfortable voting, you don't have to vote. Just putting that out there. So with that, are we ready for a vote? And Talia, you're voting. Brian, you're not voting because Barbara's back, okay? Okay. all
Is
in-
it disruptive to not vote? Like, I don't know much about this project yet. That's,
I mean, I don't know, I mean,
It's fine.
okay.
yeah, I mean,
If you don't plan to vote, you should just say so.
Yeah, I don't think
Then Brian should vote, right?
yeah, that's true.
I think that makes more sense.
Okay, so you don't plan to vote?
Yeah.
Brian, would you vote? Or are you planning
I
to
would,
vote?
I would say the same thing.
You would say the same thing.
I don't, unfortunately, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
feel like I have. I tried to consume this today.
Yeah,
But there's so much, and I don't have a history, so I feel the same. I would
Yeah.
not vote.
okay. Okay, so we're down to anyone else?
I also feel like I'm paying catch up, but I'm willing to vote. But maybe just like a one sentence, kind of like, or 1 minute maybe explanation, like in terms of like the overall footprint and impervious area, how does it compare to what's there? Like just
It's a reduction in impervious.
It's, yeah. It's a reduction, the building, the impervious got pulled back.
right.
I mean, not obviously outside the 100-foot buffer. It got pulled back. They're putting the trail in there that's connecting to all the other properties, trails that are supposed to be coming through. And there was no stormwater treatment on the site, right? Is that right?
Initially.
Initially, so
Currently.
obviously that's
Okay.
been handled. I don't know, is there anything else that's?
But it'll be bigger because the parking is now underground, right, or under
Parking's
the building.
underground.
Or,
Yeah.
first floor. Okay.
The plantings are nice because there's not much there now. I mean, there's some
Right.
trees, but
Yeah, it was just lawn behind there, straight to the water.
kind of a mess.
There is a dock that will be a private dock, so it'll be a locked gate.
That's
so
what I was
not-
wondering.
Yeah. I'm
And so
not-
the floats
Is
are
that
part
for
of
the
the dock?
residents?
I think, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
It will be private, though.
Yeah,
Okay. And so those floats they'll continue to be put out there and
it sounds like it,
maybe
yeah.
stored somewhere else. Okay. That's helpful.
Any other big bullet items about the project?
I think that's most of it.
They're getting the extra story, right, because of the Greenway addition, was that the incentive thing?
The public space,
The
yeah.
public space, okay. And they're doing more public space than is actually required by a little bit.
Okay. And there's no living shoreline or anything as part of this project?
There's no living shoreline as part of it. I think the big difference is that there's public access through the whole back of the site on the trail. There wasn't before. That's a big factor. And then the porous driveway comes onto the site where it didn't before.
Okay, so anyone else not want to vote, recuse themselves for this, or abstain, I guess?
I guess I would just ask, I mean, this was 2021, right?
Yeah.
But has anything significant changed in,
Area.
if it was approved at the
Yeah.
time, why this commission would want to consider anything else?
I don't think, personally, I don't think anything significantly has changed in that area that would,
There's been no development on the pond. There's been a little bit of improvement on the public right-of-way on Market Street, kind of nearby, but
Yeah.
other than that, there hasn't really been much.
I guess I mean also in like how we consider this, like
Oh, yeah.
sea level rise calculations have changed or something, or, you know, if there's any reason to scrutinize it more than you would have back then. I don't know.
and additionally, because this is a state wetland permit, we're just recommending approval. I mean, the state has all their guidelines that
Yeah.
really we don't, we give them a little narrative, but we don't have as much influence as we do on our own wetland conditional use permit, which is already approved, so that already is
Okay.
in place, if that helps at all.
Yeah.
Really good question, though.
Yeah.
Because they're looking for.
Yeah, I thought of that too when I was kind of reviewing this again. I had to go back and be like, well, what was the vote? What were our stipulations? Like, because it was so long ago.
Thank you for doing that, by the way. That's super helpful to all of
Yes.
us.
All right. Are we ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor? Against? And two, well, one, I guess, abstain because the other person wasn't going to vote anyways.
Right.
Okay, thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
All right. Last thing, well, not last thing, we have other business if we get to it, but next thing is the State Wetland Bureau application for Eversource.
I don't see him. Nobody's here.
Nobody's here.
Were they here before? No.
I don't think they were.
I haven't seen anybody else.
Yeah.
It was
Is
just
anyone,
Neil
I was here
is
early.
anyone trying to talk to you?
Oh, good question. Sorry. I haven't even looked at that.
I wonder if anyone's been trying to talk to us this whole time.
Peter has to do two different jobs.
He's been out
I'm
of the
not
game
as
for
good. Kate's way better at this multitasking stuff. Here we go. Participants. Oh,
Oh, boy.
Channel 22, Planning Department. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
I gave up on it.
All right, so should we do a motion to postpone?
I think, well, it's a state wetland permit. You could do however you want. You could postpone it.
We have to get an extension.
We'll submit for the 40-day statutory delay. Hopefully it's enough time, and the state won't have approved it, but that's all you can do at this point.
Okay.
Or you can just not give anything to the state, but you might as well postpone it and hope to get it on next meeting.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So I want to make a motion then to postpone the application to the April meeting.
I'll make a motion to postpone the State Wetland Bureau application dredge and fill major impact for public service, is that? I mean, there are all those
Eversource.
maps. Oh, Eversource.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, is that?
Yep. Do we have a second?
Yep.
Second? I'm assuming no discussion. Ready for a vote? All in favor? Talia, you
Am I
can vote.
voting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Against? All right. Wow, guys, this is really good work. I thought we were doomed. All right, other business. The first thing on here is Earth Day 2024. Unless somebody really has something that they really want to do for Earth Day through the Conservation Commission, we might just support Jess with a table at the Sustainability Fair. Unless someone really has something that they're like gung-ho about, really want to try to do, we might just you know, do a little bit of a simpler thing this year. Last year, we did a trail cleanup kind of thing, which was really cool, but it did require quite a bit of work and planning, which, not to say we can't do it in future years, but I personally don't have the bandwidth to try to get that off the ground this year. But if anyone else does, by all means. Okay, so is everyone okay with just supporting Jess with the Sustainability Fair as our Conservation Commission contribution to Earth Day?
Sounds good.
Okay. On that note, we are going to have a table at the Sustainability Fair. Lynn has already volunteered to be at the table. She would like a buddy. So we have the date and time here if people could think about it. We're still kind of trying to figure out what we would do at the table, and that's something that we can talk about as a group and with Lynn. And you don't have to have an answer now, but to get back to Kate or me or Jess or Lynn, whoever, to say that you'd be interested in helping her out at the table.
I will offer that I know because I think last year part of the Conservation Commission's table was focused on native plants.
Yep.
Which there's fine for multiple people to discuss that, but I know there is another group who is going to be focusing on that piece too, so
That's
just.
probably fine, because Allison was the ringleader on the native plants.
Right. So just so you know, if you're trying to figure out where to steer
Okay.
the table, that
Okay.
that is being covered by another participant already.
Okay. That's good to know.
We can help put together like a bigger buffer poster and things like
Yeah,
that.
that'd be awesome.
So we can get some graphics for you if you don't have them.
I like that idea. I like the idea of kind of like focusing on what we do to as a conservation commission, like keeping it really close to,
Yep.
like looking at the map of the town. I love that idea.
Yep.
Opening up Portsmouth GIS so you know how to use that. Like,
Yeah.
I think there could be some fun.
Yeah, prime wetlands. You can talk about
Totally.
Prime wetlands.
Do you live in the buffer? Do you know that you live in the buffer?
Know what a buffer is.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any other updates for the Sustainability Fair?
No, not specifically. I mean, I'll be sending out another emails this week, so everybody will know, but, we continue to get people interested. It seems like there's gonna be a good turnout. I think I told all of you before, we'll have free food and drinks. We'll have Max giving out saplings. Currently, there's work to see if we can do some sort of, I'm not clear if it's gonna be clothing or textile drive or something, so people can bring in that stuff as well to get it more interactive. That's really our mission or vision this year, is to just get people engaged, make it as interactive as possible, and give people take-homes that they can leave feeling empowered to take action on something, whatever that is, whether they, you know, if they have a focus of what they're trying to do, or if they're just looking to learn more, so. Cool. So I think whatever we can do to educate them about, if you go the wetland route, how much wetlands there actually are in Portsmouth and what that means, and.
Yeah. That's a cool idea. Have some stats ready.
Yeah.
Some big stats.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The last thing on the other business was something I added, which is the swap shop, which I don't know if people generally know about that concept, but it's a place where residents or the public can bring things, like usually they're like household items, sporting equipment, that sort of thing, and leave them at a tent, a little room, a table, like it varies how big or small scale these things are, that then other residents can just come and take. And it just, the goal is to more sustainability, limit what goes into the landfill, limit the purchasing of new things, but also to kind of foster a little more a sense of community, and keep things more on a local scale. And it's something that a lot of towns in New Hampshire have, and all over across the country have. And it was something that was, I think, originally talked about for having one in, usually also it's they're in transfer stations or recycling centers, dumps, that sort of thing, but they don't have to be. And this idea was, I think, first floated in 2008 for having one in in Portsmouth, and there was a lot of public support for it. The mayor endorsed it, and the issue at that time was space in the recycling center. manpower and cost, which space may well be still an issue. At that time, there was talks of expanding, and I'm not really sure where we are on that front. I'm gonna talk with DPW just to kind of see if anything at all has changed in that regard. But if nothing has, potentially looking for an alternative route and doing something more as a community and less city-driven, and having it sited somewhere else outside of the recycling center, and maybe partnering with other organizations that might help draw attention to it. So if anyone is interested in that and would love to kind of work with me to figure out how to kind of get this going, I'm really interested in trying to get it off the ground, even at a very, very small scale, and then seeing where it could potentially go. So just putting that out there. If I get more information or I learn some things or progress, I'll give updates.
I can also,
Yeah.
Sustainability Committee has
Yeah.
kind of talked about this in various forms and fashions, and sort of to your point, I think there's always been a question of what is happening to our transfer station and when, and how much input can we have into what that might look like in the future.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah,
think-
I sent an email to, who's the?
Bert Cohen.
Yeah.
Cohen, yep.
I sent him an email earlier today, just kind of seeing, getting information, what he knows, what's been floated since 2008, if he has any updates, so, yeah.
People talking about it, but I think space is a big problem with DPW. 'cause
Yeah.
They don't have the funding to expand that yet, so.
So that's where they're at, like, it's not.
Well, I don't know, they might have other ideas, but it also
But I
could be.
mean, with the
some-
transfer station, like, that project is kind of just on hold now because.
I think it's waiting for funding.
Got it.
But I'm gonna, I'll see what Bert says, I'll talk to Peter Rice, and kind of go from there. But if anyone has any ideas, love to hear them.
I'll just put a
Yeah.
initial thought in your head. That sounds very interesting to me. I've not heard that concept before, so
Okay.
it does intrigue me.
Yeah,
And I'm sure some of the stuff has been talked about, but it immediately made me think. I'm involved with a number of the nonprofits, Chase Home, Crossroads House, Gather, several. And a lot of times the residents have needs for things. And it made me wonder if there's some opportunity to work with the nonprofits in this. We don't need to, but you can probably see.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just putting that
Yeah.
bug out there. I'm happy to talk with
Well,
you.
it also, while we have like 2 more minutes, I was, Gather, which I know you're a big part of Gather,
Yeah.
has their pantry market at the community campus on Fridays. And I was
Exactly.
like, maybe something could happen in that location that could also partner with those.
Yep,
that-
and we have space both at Crossroads and Chase Home. I mean, we have 25 acres
Yeah.
at Chase Home, so space
Yeah.
might be an opportunity.
But public access too, because I know Chase Home doesn't
And-
want.
and then
but
there's
yeah,
that.
Yeah,
But we have volunteers and
Yeah.
such, so.
okay. Well, yeah, that's definitely, that was in my mind too,
Yeah, yeah,
about how to
good.
partner, yeah,
So
so,
we can connect it.
yeah, definitely.
Like to brainstorm on that.
Yeah. Yeah, after Peter Rice probably tells me the transfer station
it's-
isn't gonna happen,
Probably.
then we could kind of go down that route. So I just kind of want to confirm that before, yeah, because that would be the obvious place, but I know that's probably not gonna happen, so. But I don't want that to be the nixing of it right there, so, yeah.
When I was growing up, we had one of those and we called it the Treasure Shack.
The towns call it all
And it
different
was
things.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one in my hometown too, and it's fantastic.
That's neat.
Kittery has one.
Yeah. Durham has had one since 2001. I mean, there's a lot of really great examples around here that we
Yeah.
can also learn from. Most of them are in transfer stations, but most of them also have way more space than we do as a community, so. Anyways.
Two, just real quick.
Yeah.
Really quick. And I'll have this sent out through an email, but the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, I wanted for the people that are new to know about it and send out an email to a link because they have a great annual meeting in November, be November 2nd, and it's in Pembroke, and it's something that's awesome if you're new to this and interested in learning more. It's really a big conference, but I'll send stuff out about that. And then also Cooperative Extension is doing landscaping for water quality workshop over in Sunapee, and that's a great workshop. It's a 2-day workshop. I don't know if you guys would pay for it through our conservation fund, because it's like,
Probably, if it's
it's
not
almost
too
like,
much.
it's like $200. So, but we can, if somebody's interested,
Probably
definitely.
we could pay for it out of the either staff budget or conservation fund, probably the staff budget.
It's designed for Conservation Commission members, but it's really designed for landscapers, so you kind of get to see what it's all about, and it's very comprehensive, and I would strongly recommend it if you're interested in that kind of thing. So,
When is that one?
when? Oh, yeah, it's April 4th and 5th. So, in Sunapee. And also to encourage other people to go if they're interested at all. That's it.
And just like building on that, we're hosting, I floated this idea earlier, and Barbara and I met with a woman from Cooperative Extension who wanted to do a workshop with us on sustainable lawn care. And so we did find a date, and I think we're going to host it at the Great Bay Reserve where I work, but I think we can promote it through the Sustainability Fair and encourage everybody to promote it. And we'll kind of pilot it, and maybe we could do something similar in Portsmouth proper if there's interest, and the program's kind of well received. But it's April 19th.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned. Thanks, guys.